What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of Weathering the Storm, an Orlando Storm podcast. My name is Dakota Wolf, and today we are going to be starting a somewhat long series of analyzing the senior classes of all the different universities and colleges around the state of Florida. I thought this would be really interesting in kind of trying to find some potential prospects for this new roster, for the Orlando Storm. Mike Rapoli had mentioned he wanted to place a strong emphasis on players local to the community and local to the state of Florida. And I think, what better than to look at a lot of these guys that are graduating from these colleges, these seniors that are coming in from the different universities around Florida, and just looking at what the best prospects are and seeing what kind of guys might fit this new team with an empty roster. And what better team to start out with than the UCF Knights, Orlando's hometown team, and currently really only football team in the city of Orlando with a complete roster. The Orlando Storm will soon have one. And then I'm not really sure what's going on with the Orlando Pirates. That team also just got announced. I don't really know anything about that. So the only true complete football team with a full roster, the UCF Knights. So just to start with a little bit of a background on this team, and specifically the team this season, they are undergoing what is a bit of a rebuild under first-year head coach Scott Frost. Sort of, he was the coach back in the glory days, or I guess the best season that UCF has had somewhat recently, about 10 years ago, back in the 2016 and 2017 season. But this is a bit of a rebuild. After the previous head coach had left, Gus Malzahn, he took most of the talent with him and kind of left Scott Frost and the current coaching staff to get this roster together quick and in a hurry. So that being said, you can kind of expect that this senior class from UCF is not one of the strongest. That being said, there are still some pretty interesting prospects here, but I think it is important to kind of tone down the expectations for this video. We won't be looking at many superstar level talents here, even for the UFL. But there are plenty of interesting names here that we could find, and a lot of talented individuals that we'll look at that are more so developmental pieces, players with a lot of interesting traits, a lot of potential, but not a lot of blue chip superstar level talent. So I'll start by going over each of the players that I'm going to be analyzing in this video from UCF senior class. I'm not going to touch on every single player that is in UCF senior class, just because there's a lot of players who really didn't see the field much at all, and some that did see the field and just underperformed, that I really don't see a realistic avenue to the UFL. No disrespect to those players, but I just don't really see the point in attempting to analyze really nothing. But I'd be happy to see these players make that jump and prove me wrong. But to start with the players that I'll be covering in this video, Philip Dunham, a defensive back from North Miami Beach, Florida. Miles Montgomery, running back from Jacksonville, Florida. Jaden Nixon, running back from Irving, Texas. Cole Kozlowski, linebacker from Spring Lake, New Jersey. Malachi Lawrence, defensive end from Louisville, Kentucky. Nigelique Kelly, defensive end from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And Noe Ruelis, a kicker from West Hartford, Connecticut. And let's start with what is probably my favorite player on this entire list of UCF seniors, the transfer from the Colgate Raiders, Cole Kozlowski. Now, he spent 3 seasons with the Colgate Raiders before transferring to UCF, where he spent his final year of eligibility. At Colgate, he had a really special season in 2024, which I assume led to the interest from UCF to go after him in the transfer portal. Um, he led the he led the Colgate Raiders in tackles with 133. He also added on 8 tackles for a loss, 3.5 sacks, a forced fumble, an interception, multiple pass breakups, and a blocked kick. He would then transfer from the Colgate Raiders to UCF for their 2025 season. He would finish with 82 total tackles, 50 solo tackles, 32 assisted tackles, 3 passes defended, 2 sacks, and 1 forced fumble, bringing his career total, combining the Colgate Raiders and the UCF Knights, to 269 total tackles, 11 passes defended, 7.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and 2 interceptions. Cole Kozlowski's 2025 season with the UCF Knights was able to earn him all Big 12 third team. So to get in a little bit on Cole Kozlowski outside of just the stats and the accolades, more about Cole Kozlowski as a player, um, I think every defense needs a Cole Kozlowski. And what I mean by that is someone who's just that high energy, um, high octane player, always rushing to the ball full speed. You hear these coach cliches about we want to be quick to the ball, we want to tackle well, you want to, all those type of cliches. Cole Kozlowski embodies that to the max. It seems like every time there's a play to be made in the backfield, um, Cole Kozlowski is there or somewhere near it. Someone that is always giving 100% effort no matter what, always rushing to the ball, always making the tackle, um, and always making a play. So obviously, extremely, very strong in run defense, um, and always a high effort. Like you never have to question whether he's giving it his all. He's always out there doing everything he can to make a play. Now, I will say he's not really known for his pass defense, but again, not many modern linebackers or just linebackers in general are known for their pass defense. I wouldn't say he's a liability, but I wouldn't say he's, particular. Like that's not the strength of his game. Um, so really is not somebody you just want to keep dropping back into zone coverage. He is somebody you want to keep, more like a traditional linebacker. You want to keep him closer to the line of scrimmage around, making tackles, not trying to drop back into coverage 24/7 and defend tight ends or match running backs out on passing routes. He is someone you want to get in there and let him make tackles, let him make hits and let him make plays that type of way. And he's really good at doing that. And you just love to see him play because he's always just darting around the field and making those tackles left and right. So to summarize Cole Kozlowski and what I think he could do for the Orlando Storm, um, I would be extremely interested in the Orlando Storm going after this kind of player. I think he would be great. That being said, I do think if the Orlando Storm were to look at a Cole Kozlowski, it would probably be more of a developmental piece. Someone who probably wouldn't be starting right away, but is someone that could develop into a truly special player in this league, and maybe at another league, maybe up into the NFL. I do think he is a really good player, and he could definitely make an NFL practice squad for sure, and definitely find his way onto a roster. Um, he just when you watch him play, it is truly something special. And like I said, every time a good play is made, it seems like Cole Kozlowski is somewhere in or around it. So I would love to see him on the Orlando Storm. But again, he was all Big 12 third team. Um, it's still a significant accomplishment, right? It's the third team. But that being said, there's a reason it's third team and not first or second, right? A really good player, and I think he has a bright future ahead of him in football. But again, it wouldn't be like some superstar level linebacker right out of the gate. And again, maybe I'm underestimating him. Maybe he could come out and do that, but it's my estimation that if he were to make an Orlando Storm or another UFL roster, um, he would probably start off as more of a depth piece, and then could develop into something where he is a key starter. And say someone gets injured, someone goes down, I would I would feel perfectly fine throwing a Cole Kozlowski in there on a UFL team and letting him start at linebacker. Um, but that being said, I probably wouldn't lean on him as the go-to starter, but I do think he would be perfectly fine filling in. And once he develops and grows and matures in that league, I think he'd be amazing. I mean, he would be an electric player to watch, an exciting player to watch, and I think the Orlando Storm should definitely take some interest in him, assuming um, he's not able to make an NFL roster. So next, we're gonna kind of mix it up a little, and I already know the reaction I'm gonna get, but it's Noe Ruelas, kicker. Um, Now, I'm sure everyone's thinking, why are you wasting my time with kicker talk? Just grab some guy off the street, go get destroying, or go get some random, just go get somebody at kicker and throw him on the roster. But hear me out. Noe Ruelas was great for UCF. And for a university and a team that has had a pretty shaky history with trying to find a good kicker, I think a lot of UCF fans, well, I know a lot of UCF fans, um, were sad that this guy didn't have more eligibility left, because he finally was able to bring some stability to this position for the Knights that they just haven't had and for as long as I can remember. Um, but this season for UCF, he went 15 of 17 on field goals for about an 88% hit rate there. He had a long of 54, and he hit 32 of 33 point after attempts. For his career, he is 46 of 57 for about an 81% hit rate, and has hit all but 3 of his point after attempts, hitting 98 of 101. So he started off his college career at UConn, where he played for 2 seasons, transferred to James Madison for 1 year, and then finished off his college career at UCF for the 2025 season. So Noe Ruelas was able to hit the long-range kicks as well. I know that is usually a problem with these college kickers, is maybe sometimes they are super consistent within 50, but after 50, they kind of get a little shaky. That really wasn't a problem for Noe Ruelas. UCF was able to line him up past 50 multiple times this year, and he was knocking them down at a really good rate. He had a 54-yarder against Houston, a 53-yarder at Kansas State, and a 51-yarder against West Virginia. He also was able to hit a game-winning 34-yard field goal against Oklahoma State. Another thing to note is he was also named semi-finalist for the Lou Groza Award, which, if you don't know, honors the top college place kicker in the country. So, just to summarize why Noe Ruelas would be a great addition to the Orlando Storm, he's shown accuracy and he's shown the leg strength. A lot of times it's with kickers, even NFL kickers, it's one or the other. You're super accurate, but once you get past 50, or uh, you can see that accuracy go crazy because they're having to put in more leg strength into it that they don't naturally have, and it throws the kicks all over the place, and accuracy gets super shaky, or they're just short. Um, he's proven that he can hit kicks in the clutch, even though it was a short kick. It was still a game-winning kick that he was able to knock in over Oklahoma State. And he has the experience. He's played the full 4 seasons and had relative success across all 4 seasons with 3 different schools. Outside of that, it's really hard to know what else to get into. I mean, he's a kicker. He makes kicks. What else do we need to say? I think there should be no problem with that skill set transitioning over into the UFL. I think really my only concern is that an NFL team might see that and grab him before the UFL even gets a chance to. But yeah, I think that's enough said. I think he'd be great, and he'd be a nice, reliable kicker for the Orlando Storm if they were able to get him. So next, I want to get into what might be the best player in this senior class, and that is Philip Dunham, the defensive back out of North Miami Beach, Florida. He started his college career with the Indiana Hoosiers, transferred out and spent a year with FAU, and then transferred to UCF for his final season. In Philip Dunham's 2025 season with the UCF Knights, he was able to record 60 total tackles, including 3 for a loss, 2 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, 5 passes defended, and 1 touchdown. Career stats across all 4 years would include 174 tackles, 6.5 tackles for a loss, 1 forced fumble, 13 pass breakups, 9 interceptions, 22 passes defended, and 1 touchdown. His performance in the 2025 season for the UCF Knights did earn him an All Big 12 honorable mention. One extremely notable game for Philip Dunham, and the game in which he recorded all 3 of his interceptions for the entire year, was the game versus the Houston Cougars, where he again recorded 3 interceptions, including a 43-yard pick six. This is the first time in UCF history that a player has recorded 3 interceptions in a single game. And his performance in that game earned him Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week. PFF also lists Philip Dunham as the 5th highest rated safety in the Big 12. To summarize Philip Dunham, I would say he was a bright spot, perhaps one of the brightest spots, if not the brightest spot, on what is already a surprisingly good UCF defense this year. He's shown the ability to take the ball away and to get up there and break up the pass. But he's also not afraid to get physical and make those tackles for the defense. He's also managed to stay healthy for the entirety of the 2025 season. And as far as I'm aware, has not really had any significant injuries throughout his entire college career, which is also something significant to consider for his transition into the UFL. I believe if he's able to just continue to build off of this awesome year and continue to improve as he has throughout the entirety of his college career, he would be an excellent addition to the Orlando Storm. And honestly, could be competing for a starting role on the team. I do think he has superstar potential. Again, not sure if he's there yet for a professional football league, but he absolutely can get there, certainly in the UFL. And next we'll go with what is my favorite offensive player from this senior class for UCF, and that is the 5'10", 200-pound running back, Jaden Nixon. Jaden Nixon spent 3 years at Oklahoma State before transferring to Western Michigan, where he had his breakout year, and then transferred to UCF to finish out his college career. In his 2025 season with the UCF Knights, Jaden Nixon was able to rack up 554 yards on 71 carries for a 7.8 yards per carry average with a long of 87 yards and 7 touchdowns. He was also able to add 17 receptions for 88 yards. Jaden Nixon was also named to the All Big 12 honorable mentions. So after hearing those stats, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, nothing really jumps off the page there. Those probably sound like relatively mediocre numbers. And honestly, you'd be right. They aren't the most impressive numbers. And it wasn't the most impressive season for the UCF running backs. A group that we thought, we meaning UCF fans, thought would be a strength of this team actually turned out to be one of the worst aspects. So that being said, you're probably asking, well, why in the world did you include them on this list, and why was he your favorite offensive player? Well, I think there's a lot more to consider that led to the poor running back play for the UCF Knights. And although the running game in general was disappointing, there are a lot of specific traits, specifically with Jaden Nixon, that are extremely exciting to look at. And assuming he could develop the rest of his game, these traits could take off and push him over the edge to be a superstar level running back. Um, Again, it's a chance, and um, it would take a lot of work to get there, but there is potential. You're banking on a lot of potential. He's absolutely not there yet, but he has the potential to get there. It's very exciting once you watch him play. Um, but I guess to kind of summarize what I think led to the mediocre numbers and just the kind of disappointing performance against expectations, the offensive line play was just horrible for UCF. It was absolutely awful, and not just in the run game, but for the pass blocking as well. Just every negative thing you could apply to an offensive line, UCF faced it this year, and UCF's running backs faced it this year. And the running backs probably got the worst of it out of any other position, obviously. Um, just penalties nonstop. I mean, false starts. Um, you know, every penalty that an offensive lineman can get, the UCF offensive line got. Um, and there were numerous games. It pains me to even think about it. At least two games that I can think of where there were 4th and 1s. One that could have won the game against Kansas that I was actually there in person for. Um, and the offensive line couldn't get it. I mean, the one against Kansas, it's on the goal line. Um, and I think they tried it like 3 times to run it up the middle. Um, and I don't think this was Jaden Nixon, so I guess I'm getting a little off topic here, but and they couldn't get it. But I think that just goes to show you what they were working with, and by they I mean Jaden Nixon and Miles Montgomery, another running back that I'll get to after this. Um, but they just weren't working with much, and they had to do the best with what they could. And on top of that, there were a decent amount of games here where UCF is down, and they are having to pass their way to try and get back into the game. And the passing game wasn't good either. This entire offense was honestly very stale, stagnant, and disappointing. It was kind of expecting, so disappointing, kind of expected. So disappointing might be a little harsh, but quite frankly, they were just horrible. I mean, almost every facet of this offense was bad. And outside of the tight ends, I mean, at the very best you could say for any of the other position groups was mediocre. But that would probably be a compliment. So again, I think these guys were just doing the best with what they could. But to get into the positives, Jaden Nixon is a home run hitting running back, a slasher running back, someone who could break off an 80, 90-yard touchdown at a moment's notice and completely change the outcome of a game by himself. Um, the way I just talked about that offensive line, like you have to be truly special to create something out of that. Um, and he was able to on occasions. He was also battling with Miles Montgomery for touches. So he didn't always get those opportunities. The first game of the season, 2 attempts. Second game of the season, only 4 attempts. But okay, that was more so a blowout. So that was the reason he didn't get in on that game. But even on 4 attempts for 156 yards and 2 touchdowns, an average of 39 yards per carry. I mean, home run hitting. But then again, you see the next game against North Carolina, only 5 attempts for 10 yards. Still had it on a touchdown. Kansas, 5 attempts, 66 yards. Only 5 attempts the entire game. But 13 yards per carry. I mean, it seemed like at certain points of the season, you hand the ball to Jaden Nixon, and he's getting you a first down at least. It could be 3rd and 15, and that dude's getting you a first down by himself. But again, it wasn't consistent for the entire season, and that's what was so frustrating with it, is that when UCF gave him the ball, it seemed like we were always getting big plays from him. but he just didn't get the ball that often. So I think there were probably aspects of his game that were keeping him off the field. I don't want to act like he was some hidden gem that was just completely ignored by Scott Frost and the UCF staff. There were probably reasons why he wasn't getting as many attempts per game. Um, I don't think he's an exceptional pass blocker, probably not a good pass blocker. I don't think he's exceptional at finding lanes, and like he's not really known for his vision. The dude just has crazy speed, and he makes up for every other weakness in his game with that speed and that ability to make that one cut and take off for 80 yards. Like, it is unreal, the athletic ability from Jaden Nixon. Now, if he can work on the pass blocking, um, he can work on the vision. Um, the dude could be an every down back, and he could be a superstar level back in the UFL. Um, and he would be an exciting player to watch. Like, when I say every handoff, there is a roll of the dice that Jaden Nixon could take it to the house. It's real. It's very real, and we saw it a lot. Not as much as we wanted to for UCF, but when they gave the ball to Jaden Nixon, good things tended to happen. Um, but like I said, he has flaws in his game, and it would very much be a developmental piece. He needs to work a lot on his pass blocking and all like the things I mentioned earlier if he wanted to be a true three down back in any sort of professional league. But even as a developmental piece, even as the player he is now, if you had him on a UFL roster, buried him on the depth chart, and then teams aren't going to be scouting for him, you give him a couple handoffs a game, there's a good chance one of those handoffs could be an 80-yard house call or 50-yard house call, 30-yard house call, whatever. He's that type of player, and he is special, and he could definitely make some noise in the UFL. And that's why I think he would be an excellent addition to the Orlando Storm. And I would love to see him. Of all the players of the senior class for UCF, this might be one of the top players I would want to see on the Orlando Storm. Again, I think it's a developmental piece. I don't think he's going to be a superstar day one of making a UFL roster, but I do think he could develop into something truly special. And I guess we'll just go straight into the other running back that I had listed here, Miles Montgomery, team captain and the starting running back for the UCF Knights. He started his career with Cincinnati, where he played for 3 years, transferred to UCF during the 2024 season, where he backed up R.J. Harvey, and then he finished out his career with UCF in the 2025 season. In 2025, he recorded 705 rushing yards on 143 attempts for a 4.9 yards per carry average and 4 touchdowns. He also added on 17 receptions for 182 yards. Now, there is a lot to like about Miles Montgomery, and I don't want to disrespect him by having a lot less enthusiasm about him as a player as I did about Jaden Nixon. Because he is a good player. Definitely didn't live up to expectations before the season. I think a lot of UCF fans, he was probably one of the most popular players on this team amongst UCF fans before the season had started. And I think he kind of fell out of favor as the season wore on just due to the running game's complete ineptitude and lack of ability to get anything going, including, like I mentioned before, those simple 1-yard runs. But again, this as is the case with Jaden Nixon, a lot of it really wasn't on Miles Montgomery. A lot of it had to do with the situation around him and the inability to really work around that. But in terms of just the play style and the type of player Miles Montgomery is, in a lot of ways, it's kind of the antithesis to Jaden Nixon. Now, just as a person, before I get into that, Miles Montgomery is definitely a leader. He's a team captain for a reason, and he does have a very glowing personality. Like he seems like a very cool guy and someone that a locker room of guys can get around and respect and, you know, just have fun playing with alongside. Um, but as a player, he is more of a smart rusher, meaning he has the vision and he knows what hole to hit and he knows where to go with the football. But in contrast to Jaden Nixon, he's not really known for the home run breaking rushes. He's more of a consistent, pick up the 4 or 5 yards kind of guy. Like hit the right hole, get the yards you need, and keep the chains moving. And that's valuable. Don't get me wrong. That is valuable. But he also doesn't really have, like, he's not necessarily a power back either. He kind of lacks that identity in terms of he's not the fastest back ever, and he's not the most powerful back ever. Where Jaden Nixon is, by all means, an extremely speedy running back. Miles is just kind of a decent balance of the two. Um, but what that kind of creates is I think it creates a lot higher of a floor for a running back, but it also, I think, really caps that ceiling. And I don't mean to throw any disrespect towards Miles Montgomery. I think he is a good player. But that being said, when we're looking at trying to develop a UFL roster in the Orlando Storm, personally, I gravitate a lot more towards Jaden Nixon because I see the potential for a lot more. I see someone who, if he can brush up all these other things, the vision and the pass blocking and stuff like that, someone who has that ability to hit those home run balls. I mean, if you can just add what Miles Montgomery has now, those consistent gains with each play, that's a superstar level running back. And again, no disrespect to Miles Montgomery, but I don't see the same thing for him. I see a more consistent running back if he stays at this level, and even if he gradually improves, and he could be an extremely solid running back, a reliable running back for a team. But I don't see that same ceiling as I see with someone like Jaden Nixon. Now again, I think with the right situation and a much improved offensive line, Miles Montgomery could be a really mature and acceptable running back for the Orlando Storm and in the UFL. But that being said, I've kind of made my preference clear. If I were to choose one of the two, I would probably lean more towards Jaden Nixon, just because I think the potential down the road could be a lot better. That being said, I think if you were to choose one right now and only focus on if you had a game today and you needed one, and you could only pick one, I would probably go with Miles Montgomery. And again, I could be dead wrong. He absolutely could elevate his game to another level and could work towards being a superstar running back in a professional football league. And now let's move on to the 260-pound, 6'4" defensive end from Louisville, Kentucky, Malachi Lawrence. And what is a rarity in current college football, Malachi Lawrence actually spent all 4 years of his college career with the UCF Knights. Malachi Lawrence finished his career with the UCF Knights, recording 72 total tackles, 28 tackles for a loss, 20 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, 5 pass breakups, and 5 passes defended. In this most recent season with the UCF Knights, Malachi Lawrence recorded 28 total tackles, including 11 tackles for a loss, 7 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 3 pass breakups, and 3 passes defended. Malachi Lawrence's strong 2025 season with the UCF Knights was enough to earn him a place on the All Big 12 first team, one of only 3 players from UCF to ever be named to the All Big 12 first team since they joined the league. In 2025, I think Malachi Lawrence did enough to solidify himself as a truly elite defensive end in the Big 12. But even more than that, throughout his career with UCF, I think he showcased discipline and leadership and commitment. In this modern college landscape, it's extremely easy to jump ship and switch teams whenever you feel like it's necessary. Um, and this most recent season, UCF underwent a significant coaching change and influx and departure of players. It would have been very easy for Malachi Lawrence to jump ship and leave with a lot of the other people that left, and with Gus Malzahn, but instead he chose to stay and stuck with this UCF team that didn't really have many aspirations going into this season, but he stayed with his team and honestly helped solidify what was a surprisingly solid defense, and for much of the season was ranked as a top 20 defense in the entirety of college football. Um, I think those are great things for a team like the Orlando Storm and any professional football team. Negative that is worth keeping in consideration is that he did incur an off-season injury in 2025. Though nothing major, it is worth keeping an eye on to see if anything reoccurs or materializes further from that injury. To summarize, I do think Malachi Lawrence would be an extremely beneficial addition for the Orlando Storm. And if he were available and they were able to get him, I think they would be foolish not to. He would be an immediate impact player and an extreme benefit. Could be a day one starter for the Orlando Storm. And last but certainly not least, we have the 6'5", 265-pound defensive end from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Nigelique Kelly. Nigelique Kelly started his college career with the University of Miami, where he played for 2 years, before transferring to the University of Central Florida in 2024 and finishing out his career in 2025. 2025, Nigelique Kelly recorded 46 tackles, including 7.5 for a loss, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 3 pass breakups, 1 interception, and 4 passes defended. Nigelique Kelly's 2025 performance also earned him all Big 12 honorable mention. So with Nigelique Kelly, what you're getting is a really good pass rushing defensive end, someone who can disrupt the pocket and force negative plays. Also someone who's really good at forcing turnovers, the 3 forced fumbles, and he's also shown that he can drop back into coverage and get an interception. The one concern that we would have to take into account with Nigelique Kelly is the durability. He did have a season-ending injury at Miami, and though it hasn't really creeped up since, it is something that is definitely worth keeping an eye on. Though he may be more of a developmental piece than Malachi Lawrence, I do believe there is a place for a Nigelique Kelly in the UFL and on the Orlando Storm's roster. So, in summary, with Nigelique Kelly, I do think he would seriously compete on a team like the Orlando Storm. Like I said earlier, he might not be an immediate impact player at the same level as Malachi Lawrence, but he's definitely somebody that could develop into something extremely special. And having that chemistry with Malachi Lawrence, that would be really awesome to have a UCF defensive end duo on that defensive line, wreaking havoc together at the next level. But we'll see if he's available for the Orlando Storm to take a swing at him. So yeah, I think that just about does it. Those were all of the players from UCF's senior class that I think would be good candidates to target for the Orlando Storm. Some homegrown talent, literally right in your backyard. To summarize, I'll just go back over the players that we listed. We had Cole Kozlowski, that spark plug linebacker who may not be the most talented player in this class, but he certainly has the heart and the grit and just that high energy that I think can benefit any team, let alone the Orlando Storm in the UFL. Then we talked about Noé Ruelas, a really good kicker for UCF and a program that has struggled to find consistency at kicker in years past. Many UCF fans wish that this kid could still play for us for years to come. Sadly, it's his senior year, but I still think he could go onto a professional league and have great success. Then we talked about Philip Dunham, probably one of the best players in this senior class and just one of the many reasons UCF's defense outperformed expectations so greatly this year. The 3 interception game versus Houston was huge. They still lost. We still lost that game somehow. Don't even get me started. But 3 interceptions in one game never happened before in UCF program history. Also with a pick six. Great player on a great defense, and I think he could be an immediate starter on the Orlando Storm. Then we talked about one of the 2 running backs in the senior class, and this would be Jaden Nixon, technically the second string running back here, who is the heavy home run hitter, but is also more of a developmental long-term piece with high potential, more than an immediate starter on day one. He has the potential to turn nothing into an 80-yard touchdown. He can get out on the edge, light everyone up, and run past everyone on the field. But he does need to work on more traditional responsibilities of a running back, such as pass blocking, and if he hits his potential, could be an electric player in the UFL and beyond. Then we got into the starting running back and team captain, Miles Montgomery. Really solid player for UCF, but again, he has a higher floor, I think, than a player like Jaden Nixon, but also I feel like a much lower ceiling. Very consistent, very dependable, but also kind of lacks the game-breaking speed that Jaden Nixon had, and doesn't really make up for it with being a true power back either. He has a high IQ, he has good vision, and is very reliable, but at the same time, doesn't really have any one trait that stands out, that gives him that like superstar caliber potential. Still a really solid player and could develop. Then we got into Malachi Lawrence, probably the star of this senior class for UCF. Defensive end and first team All Big 12. Only the 4th UCF player to have that honor since joining the Big 12. Absolute game wrecker. 7 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 28 total tackles. And the defensive end opposite of him, Nigel Kelly, also a game wrecker. Even more tackles, 46 total tackles. Also 2 forced fumbles, and even showcase yet an interception if the need arises. But 3 sacks compared to Malachi Lawrence's 7.5. But yeah, guys, I think that's just about going to do it. Let me know if you all see any players that you would really like to see on the Orlando Storm, from the guys that I mentioned, or if you are familiar with UCF and their senior class. If there's someone I didn't mention that you think I should have, go ahead and let me know. Also, let me know if you like this idea. I'm going to be trying to hit all of the major universities and colleges in Florida. So the Florida Gators, FSU, Miami, USF, probably FAU as well, maybe. We'll see. But let me know which school you guys want to see next. If you like this idea, if you're interested in me doing more schools after UCF. UCF seemed like the most logical first option because it's in the same city as the Orlando Storm, and obviously that is the team I have the most familiarity with. So I knew a lot of these players just off the top of my head and their play style just from having watched every game this season. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Thanks again for tuning in and watching, and leave a comment. Let me know if you have any thoughts or opinions or things you'd like to call out. Please feel free to let me know in the comments. Go ahead and like if you haven't already. Subscribe to the YouTube and follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Go Storm, Sir John.